Okay, the live stream is all set, so I believe we can go ahead and get started. Thank you.
Thanks, Haley. Welcome, everybody. My name's Amy Smith. This is the July 2022 meeting of the Urban Forestry Commission. We're going to start briefly with introductions and then get into the rest of our agenda. So once again, Amy Smith, I'm the chair. And so I guess I'll go ahead and call on people in this order that I have you here. So Sharon. Sharon, you're on mute.
Sorry. Hi, everybody. Sharon Summerall, Urban Forestry Representative, Technical Review Commission appointee.
Thanks. Ed?
Ed Macy, Urban Forestry Commission.
And Dawn?
Hi, Dawn Chavez, the Executive Director of Asheville Greenworks and a member of the Urban Forestry Commission.
And Dawn is actually the Vice Chair of the Urban Forestry Commission. Thanks, Dawn. And then let's see, I have Zoe.
Zoe Hoyle, Urban Forestry Commission.
And Patrick?
Patrick Gill, Urban Forestry Commission.
Thank you. And Perrin?
Perrin DeYoung, Urban Forestry Commission.
All right. I believe that's all the commission members in attendance. Cecil Bothwell is absent so far. Hopefully he'll join in. Sharon, hold on. I'm going to do the introductions for everyone and then I'll loop back to you. So we have some city staff members here today. Haley?
Hi, Haley Mahoney, Planning Technician with Development Services and a Staff Assistant to the Urban Forestry Commission.
Thank you. And let's see, Ben?
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Ben Woody, Development Services.
Thank you. Ricky?
Ricky Hurley, Planning Supervisor, and I'm filling in for Nancy Watford today for y'all.
Thank you. And then I know we have some city staff for a presentation here today, so let's see if I can pick y'all out from there. So Valerie?
Hey, I'm Valerie. I am with Stormwater and in the capital improvement projects side in Public Works. There's a mouthful.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. And I believe Russ, you're here from the city as well.
Yes, I'm Russ Davis. I am in Public Works and Stormwater, and I'm here as the Capital Program Manager.
Thank you. And Rachel?
Hi, yes, I'm Rachel Taylor. I'm the Economic Development Specialist in the Community and Economic Development Department. Nice to meet you all.
Thank you. And then I'm not sure, Chris Coral, are you with the city? I'm not sure.
Yeah, hey, good evening or afternoon. I'm Chris Coral. I'm the Director of the Community and Regional Entertainment Facilities Department, which includes the Harris-Cherokee Center. So thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. All right, did I miss anyone from the city? All right, today we have with us Kim Roney, our City Council Liaison. If you want to introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, Kim Roney, Asheville City Council, Liaison to the Urban Forestry Commission. Glad to be here with you today.
Thanks. And then we have some guests from Duke Energy today. Megan Carpenter.
Hi, I'm Megan Carpenter. Not new to the area, but fairly new to this position. I work with Duke Energy as a public engagement manager. And thank you for the invitation. Glad to be here.
Thanks. And Jason.
Good afternoon, Jason Walls. I am the West Region Director with Government and Community Relations for Duke Energy. Thanks for having us this afternoon.
Thank you. And finally, I think last but not least, Scott Fowler.
Hi, I'm Scott Fowler, and I am working with businesses and neighbors on North Lexington and Rankin Avenue in regards to the proposed substation.
All right. Did I miss anybody? I think I got everybody. All right. So before we officially call to order, Sharon.
Hi, everybody. I'd like to ask Madam Chair for a agenda revision. I have a quick comment and probably a question to Ricky regarding a steep slope issue on Elk Mountain Ridge. So I'd like to add that to new business if I may.
Yes. does anyone know, do we have to vote on that to add, I believe, to add an agenda item? I think so. So if you want to say, I guess, a motion to add a new business item for Elk Mountain, I guess that is the motion. Can we have a second?
I'll second.
And so a roll call vote. Dawn?
Aye.
Ed?
Aye.
Sharon?
Aye.
Zoe?
Aye.
Perrin?
Aye.
Patrick?
Aye.
And I vote aye. So that is added to new business. We will add it after the county partnerships discussion. And I don't know if we actually need to do a change up for this. So it's more of a question, I guess, for the guest speakers here. Haley, go ahead real quick.
Who was the second on that motion?
That was Ed.
Thank you.
So I see on here the staff reports. We have the Stormwater Improvement Project. Is that the same as the Duke Energy project, or are those different projects?
Those are different projects. This is
Okay.
a stormwater capital project. That's the Carter End project.
Okay, so then we'll just, I guess then I would like to propose a revision just to the order of the agenda. Since we have so many guests here about the Duke Energy project, I'd like to move that discussion up in the agenda to just after the stormwater presentation. So if there's a second for that.
I'll second that, Sharon Summerall.
All right, and then a quick vote. Dawn?
Aye.
Ed?
Aye.
Sharon?
Aye.
Zoe?
Aye.
Perrin?
Aye.
Patrick?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Okay, so we have our agenda set. So we will officially call to order. We need to approve the minutes from the last meeting, the action minutes. Hopefully everybody had a chance to review those, linked through the documents for today. So just need a motion and a second.
I move to approve the minutes.
Thank you.
I second.
All right, and a vote. Dawn?
Aye.
Ed?
Yes. Aye.
Sharon? Oh, thank you, Sharon. Zoe?
Aye.
Perrin?
Abstain due to partial absence.
Oh, that's right. Thank you. Patrick?
I wasn't at the last meeting, so
Oh, that's right. Thank you. I vote aye, so those minutes are approved. All right. So Haley, do we have any public comment for today?
Let me see here if we got any callers on the line. Let me just refresh the page. We did not receive any written comments prior to the meeting. And we do not have any callers on the line, but we're good to move forward.
Thank you. Okay, so then first on the agenda is the Public Works Capital Projects update on the Carter and Stormwater Improvement Project. So I don't know whoever wanted to kick that off, and if you have a presentation or if you're just chatting with us today.
Well, I have a sheet to present so that we can all be looking at the same thing. And I'm Russ Davis. I am the Stormwater Division Manager, but today I'm in my capacity as the Capital Program Manager. I'm going to present the screen here. So I won't go into the entire stormwater project, but this is the Carter and Patton Stormwater Project. We call it the CAPS project, Carter and Patton Stormwater. But this is, the project originated because this is the last bit of paving, planned paving along Patton Avenue from Klingman Avenue to South French Broad. And before that road is paved, we identified some significant drainage concerns along that area. Any of you that have driven during a rain event, there's a lot of ponding on the wall. There are collapsed pipes that are outside of the right-of-way. There's some flooding along South Ann Avenue, some flooding along Carter Street, just an old, outdated, and in need of dire repair stormwater system. That comes along with the planned paving, where we will reset all the manhole covers and valves in the street, and make Patton Avenue a much better driving situation. When we got into the design of the project and really got deep down into it, we realized that there are significant pedestrian issues along this section of Patton Avenue on the sidewalks. There's difficulty at the ramps at the intersections. There's not great pedestrian thoroughfares around drive entrances, and a lot of issues where trees have outgrown their grates, or we have where the roots have lifted up the sidewalk, creating toe trips and other ADA issues. So a significant portion of this stormwater project is going to be reworking the sidewalks on both sides of this section of Patton Avenue. When we started looking at the sidewalks, we really then had to look at one of the primary considerations is the existing trees that are there. A lot of these trees are diseased or dying, or have really I sure will. They've really outgrown their area. So I will zoom in here in the western side of Clingman Avenue. So the project will include on most of the trees, except the ones that are directly in front of this area, which is the new condominiums built a couple of years ago called the Patton. That's at the corner of Clingman and Patton Avenue. We're not going to be messing with the trees or the tree grates in front of that building, but the rest of the trees, we will either be replacing the grates to give them a larger area to grow into if the tree is completely fine and doesn't need any modification. Some of the trees that are planted too shallow and have lifted up the sidewalk or are creating hazards that we can't work around, we're going to remove those trees and replace them in place. And there are a few trees that are in really awkward locations, like they're in the sight triangle of an intersection or directly near some other physical barrier that's creating a hazard on the street. So some of those will be relocated, a few feet or 100 feet or to the other side of the road. The net at the end of the project, there will be no loss in trees. We will net out exactly the same number of trees, but we've worked with the arborist, the city arborist, to give us suggestions, recommendations of the proper trees to go back into these areas. We'll be able to, on the new trees that will be put in, they'll have proper tree wells be planted at the proper elevation, so they'll have a lot better chance of survival and success along the corridor. But just generally moving you down from Clingman, there are so the trees that we are going with will be planting 11 Japanese Elcova and 14 ginkgos. And then there's an alternate of the little leaf lichen in there, if that is appropriate at the time. But generally, this is a good example where we are moving from, a tree just a few feet over to get rid of a hazard and put it in a proper tree well. Again, we're not significantly changing anything, but this is one of the primary vehicular entrances into downtown for the city of Asheville. And the combination of the sidewalks and trees has really kind of made it not what it needs to be. So this will be a upgrade to the health of the trees and an upgrade to the longevity of the trees, because several of them are really in bad shape. And Mark Foster, the arborist, was able to help us with which ones really couldn't be salvaged, which ones needed to be replaced, and which ones really just needed a different shaped grate and an upgrade to their environment. And so
All right.
that's it for my presentation. If anybody has any questions.
Yeah, thanks, Russ. Looks like we have a couple questions. Sharon?
Hey, okay, did you say you're going to relocate some trees that are already existing?
Yes, there are a few trees that are, for instance, located right in what we call the site triangle, where you pull up at an intersection and they're just blocking, making it a hazard. So trees like that, we'll locate a few feet down. There's one area right here in the.
How old are these trees? I'm sorry to interrupt you, but how old are these trees? You can't relocate a tree that's has some age on it, dig it up out of a concrete planter and move it.
When I said relocate trees, I'm sorry that we're not relocating the tree. We will relocate the tree grate and the tree well, and we will place a new tree in that. I'm sorry.
Okay.
We're relocating the area where the trees are,
and
not the tree itself.
What size grates are you going to be using?
What size grates?
Yes.
We're going with a 4x9 all the way down. That seems to give us the right planting detail. There's a ton of existing utilities that are in the ground. So the trees where we are relocating, they're going to be tough to find a spot to dig in that doesn't have some fiber optic or gas lines or some other utility. The ones that are where we're replacing the grate in the same area, those will be a little easier to get installed.
And then my last question is, who's going to maintain these? Because we have had some trees planted on, I'm going to use the ginkgos on Charlotte Street that have not been established at all, and they've been dead and replanted and struggling. So is there going to be a maintenance contract on this so that someone is watering these the first year to establish them?
We will not have a maintenance contract. We will have a warranty on the trees though, and we will, they'll just fall into the standard maintenance that the city public works does.
All right, thank you.
All right, Ed?
Yes, Ed?
Yeah, I comment more than a question. I would recommend or strongly encourage that you use the little leaf linden and sort of forget about the zelkovas and the ginkgos. If you look around town, the ginkgos are just underperformers. They don't produce much canopy and they don't seem to survive very well. And the zelkovas, the same thing. They tend to die out after about 10 or 15 years. And they're really prone to sun scald because they're a smooth bark tree. The little leaf linden is a very appropriate species for this site. And it's an underutilized tree, but an excellent choice, I think. So just FYI, if you look at the ginkgos that are outside of the EPA building on Patton Avenue, they're just performing horribly. They just don't do well.
The ginkgos or the zelkova?
The ginkgos. Well, zelkova doesn't do well in general, especially, really hot, parking lots and streets. It's just not, I don't recommend using that tree at all anywhere.
Okay. Well, noted. And I don't personally have a preference, so that sounds great to me. Yes, Sharon?
Yeah, I back up Ed. I take care of a shopping center parking lot, and all the zelkovas have scald and peeling bark really bad. They're high maintenance and reflected heat areas. And the lindens, I totally agree with Ed, 100% on that.
They're performing a lot better.
Much, yeah, they do much better, and they do better canopy. The zelkova just don't seem to do a canopy of any size in that constrained area.
Okay. Well, we will we'll carry that forward because that is great information. I definitely want the project to be as successful as absolutely possible. So having the best tree recommendation in those spots is the way we want to go. Thank you guys for that.
All right, thank you. Oh, Sharon, one more time. Go ahead.
One question, sorry. Are you going to plant the same amount of trees that are coming out, going in? Is it one for one?
Yes. Okay. It will be a net exactly the same amount of trees on the corridor.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks. Any other questions for Russ while he's here. All right, thank you.
All right, guys. Thank you all very much.
Thanks for the update. All right. Well, next we moved up the agenda item for the proposed Duke Energy substation relocation on Rankin Avenue. And I'm not sure if anyone was prepared to present anything, but I'll just start with a brief overview, or actually Rachel or someone might be able to back me up with that. Right now, this is just a proposed project, nothing firm in the works, right, as far as I know at this point. This came to me through citizens in the community who learned about this project and were concerned about the potential loss of trees if the substation does move to the proposed location on Rankin Avenue. There's a line of trees on a steep hill that could potentially be lost. And so that's where this group comes into play on this project. I'm going to pause for just a minute because Cecil just joined us. So Cecil, Urban Forestry Commission member.
Let's see, unmute. Hi, I was involved in a bank holdup. I was held up in the drive-through.
Are you being serious?
They had a help wanted sign, so I guess they don't have any tellers or something.
Wow. Okay, well, hope everybody's
Sorry,
okay.
I'm late.
That's okay. Thank you for being here. We are just starting a discussion item on the proposed Duke Energy substation relocation. All right. So, yeah, I don't know who wants to take this from here. If someone from Duke or the city wants to fill in some gaps there, and then we can discuss that. So, I don't know, Rachel, if you had anything to add.
Sure, I can give the overview of my involvement in this project so far. So a couple of questions that came up at the tail end of last week. One was, why did this come through community and economic development as opposed to initially coming through like the more of the planning side of things? And that is for several reasons. I got involved with the project because I am in the Community and Economic Development Department, which also houses our city real estate office, and at that time housed the Harris Cherokee Center. And so for those two reasons, because the proposed project was looking at potentially a land exchange to facilitate the new, a build of the new substation, and also looking at the interest of the Harris Cherokee Center, the removal of the existing substation would allow for increased access to the rear entrance of the event center there, and possibly allow for some leeway in developing the Thomas Wolfe Auditorium. And so we took that to council last fall and agreed to work in good faith with Duke through an MOU. And we also secured a right of entry to allow Duke to do a little bit of testing on the city's real estate on that parking lot property. And so with that, I will pause. That's a very broad overview, but I don't have a presentation at this point.
No, it's okay. Thank you. So the issues that have come up are, number one, the substation must be rebuilt. It's old and it needs to be enhanced. And I'm sure Duke Energy representatives can discuss that further. So the option is to rebuild it in place, but that does not allow the city the opportunity to expand the Civic Center, the Thomas Wolfe Auditorium, Harris Cherokee Center there. If the substation moves across the street to the parking lot that currently exists, then the substation can be expanded and improved, but then the downside would be the potential tree loss, disruption to those businesses on Rankin, also on Lexington down below, and the potential loss of parking. There's a handful of parking spots there for the city staff. So those are the issues that have come up. Obviously with this group, the biggest concern is the tree loss. It's a very well canopied and vegetated slope that is very vertical. So there's some stormwater concern as well. So at this point, I guess I'll open it up if Scott, a representative of the neighborhood residents, had anything to add before we have more discussion.
I don't have anything to add. I have things to offer. I have a web gallery that I could share if you let me share screen, I can show a few pictures of the site just to kind of help orient everyone.
Sure, that'd be fine. Thank you.
All right, let's make sure I do it correctly. All right, so this is the northern end of the parking lot.
Hold on, Scott. I don't know. Can anyone else see it? It's not coming up on the screen here.
Well, it looks like for whatever reason, I cannot share my screen. Google and Zoom are fighting right now. So
that's okay. So you can, Kim suggests you can forward it to city staff, to Haley or myself. We can try to present it for you. But also I will offer this, and I believe this was linked in the agenda. Somebody might already got it there, but there's a link to the city's website about this project as well. And Scott shared the link to his photo gallery, which doesn't help those who are streaming with us, but staff or commission members can pull that up. Oh, Haley's got it. Thanks, Haley. There we go. Okay, well, Scott, if you want to then talk about what we're seeing here.
Great. So that is the northern end of the parking lot. You can see these are not insignificant trees. Some of these trees were planted, many were not, many are volunteers, but they all serve, critical needs to downtown, whether it's sound buffering, temperature regulation, air cleaning, you name it, not to mention shade, and very importantly to all those buildings on North Lexington, they are holding a very steep bank solidly in place. So those trees serve many, many purposes on that site. And our website will soon have more accessible images. Right now, you're going to find that with each click, you're just getting a very similar view. But it's substantial, and we have an aerial drone video that shows all of the canopies in the central business district, and this one is clearly one of the larger ones.
All right, thanks. If y'all haven't visited the site, I do encourage that as well. All right, so before we have a full discussion, Chris Quarles, I wanted to give you an opportunity if there's anything you wanted to add from the perspective of the Civic Center.
I don't know if I have a lot to add right now, other than if the substation were to move, that makes a big change for our ability to renovate and update the Thomas Wolfe Auditorium. You may remember in February of 2020, right before the pandemic, we announced a design plan for the Thomas Wolfe that was a $100 million price tag. A lot of that major expense came from the fact that we had to assume that the Duke Energy substation would not move, because at that time there was not any indication that that would happen. So trying to fit within our footprint to meet all the guidelines of up-to-date theaters was expensive and challenging. So having that ability to move backwards if the time and the day comes is significant for our ability to step up the programming for what's available here at the center.
All right, thank you. Yep. All right. At this point, then I'll go ahead and open it up on one more key point. So last Friday, there was a meeting on site with some of the local residents and business owners, representatives from Duke Energy, city staff, several city council members. And luckily I was looped in on this meeting. Dawn was there as well, that unfortunately we did not hear about through the city and had to kind of hear about on our own. But it was a good meeting. getting people together to talk about the pros and cons of a potential moving of the facility. So just to loop everybody in that this is something that is being talked about. The residents are very concerned mostly about the trees being lost. So I think Jason had a hand up next.
Yeah, I just wanted to add a little bit of context about the station. And thank you, whoever put that up. Thank you. I'm going to guess it was Haley or maybe Russ. But just to kind of reiterate, one of the things that has to happen is that the station does have to be rebuilt. The last significant improvement was made in the 60s. And for those of you who may or may not have been around Asheville in the 60s, a lot has changed since then. And this station really supports all of the central business district from more or less, and I'm just using a description here, but basically from South French Broad all the way over to kind of Biltmore Avenue in that whole general area. And so it's the station that's really important. The thing I wanted to stress is about the process. So the company has intended and planned all along and still does to go through the city's informal design review process so that we can gather feedback on the informal plans prior to submittal of the plans for consideration of approval. And so we anticipate doing that within the next couple to 3 weeks, somewhere around there. We don't have an exact time yet, but we're coming up on that time where we will be submitting for informal design review. Additionally, we're going to be holding a public information meeting on August the 11th to collect feedback from folks just who have an interest in the project. But what's driving the need is the station is old, it's reaching the end of its useful life, and it's a part of the critical infrastructure that serves downtown Asheville. And so we're working as quickly as we can to replace that station, but also recognize the opportunity and the need to collect public input, and have been doing that and will continue to do that in the coming months. But Amy, that's really all I wanted to add to that at this time.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I will open it up to commission members, discussions and questions. So Cecil.
This isn't particularly germane to the tree issue, but I remember a decade ago discussion about the limitations of the Thomas Wolfe complex. They can't get big sets in there, and therefore big shows don't come here. Many big shows don't come to Asheville because they have to back in beside the Vanderbilt. And if a truck can't get in there, they can't do whatever they want to do on the stage. I just think that's kind of an interesting angle on this. They've been talking about wanting to move that substation for a long time. That's all.
Thank you. No, and I agree. It adds a layer of complexity to this that, as the Urban Forestry Commission, it's very easy for us to say, well, the trees, which of course we are going to be concerned about the trees, but this is more complex than just the trees. But as far as this group is concerned, I think what we really need, and y'all can answer or ask questions, but I think it's going to come down to seeing what the plans include and, how it might be possible for Duke to use that site without possible infringement on that slope. So there was a question for Jason about the meeting that you mentioned coming up. Jason, sorry, you're on mute, please.
Sorry, wasn't expecting to participate again. It'll be at the Harris Cherokee Center. Scott, we're still working out all the details with times and that kind of stuff, but it'll be the date is August 11th, and those invitations and announcements will be coming out very, very soon so that people can make plans.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, so discussion. Yeah, thank you, Ed.
Yeah, it's really hard to react to something when it's not really been designed yet. So, but it's our advantage that it hasn't been designed yet, because we can, strongly encourage a design that would be, a little friendly to those trees on that slope, and or at least as a minimum mitigate the loss of trees completely. We can go on record and say that right now that, our preference is that we don't lose any trees. And if we do lose trees, we at least bring the same amount of canopy back somewhere to offset the loss.
Yeah, I believe we can all agree with that. We can vote if we need to. Sharon?
Jason, will this be posted on the city's website so other people can see it? How's the method of delivering to let the public know this is going on?
So Sharon, besides Duke's website, there is, and I put it in the chat, the city's website on the same project.
Okay.
And they also, I believe that's also linked through our agenda, the city's website.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Karen?
As Mr. Fowler's photography suggests, it is a significant row of trees or grouping of trees. And I also want to reiterate how steep that slope is. Scott mentioned this. It's nigh on a cliff. It's you can't get much steeper than that slope. And so the concerns about erosion, slope failure are tremendous on that site were the trees to be removed. So I'm sympathetic to Ed's statement that it's hard to respond to a project that hasn't been designed yet. Maybe I missed this. What is the rationale for moving the station across the street?
I don't know if someone from Duke wants to speak to that specifically.
Sure, I'm happy to. It actually dates back to 2013 when a certain former city council member who may or may not be on this call talked to me about, is there any possibility of moving this substation? It was one of our first interactions back in 2013 and 2014. So there's been a conversation for a long time about, is there the opportunity for the company to move the station? A substation is very similar to like a breaker panel in your house. You have a main source that comes in, and then you have wires that come out from that to power your receptacles and your refrigerators and other things. Ours are just larger lines that power the community. And so that's kind of the purpose of a substation. So moving a substation is extremely difficult. You're looking at a 50 to 60 year asset when it goes into the ground. And so when we realized we had reached the point when the station had reached the end of its useful mechanical life, that we needed to rebuild the substation. And so realizing that we could not move the substation on the other side of the town, for instance, because that's where all the other wires, we call them feeders, start and go out into the community, moving it across the street is more, it has a greater possible engineering. There is, it's possible to move it across the street. And so we engaged in an initial conversation with the city and city staff to just say, do you all want us to explore that now, given where we are with the need to rebuild the substation? And so how that really started, it started almost a decade ago with just general conversations. The station showed signs of its nearing the end of its useful life. And so we have entertained that as a possibility, but have not really put the plan or submitted the plans for consideration, even from an informal basis at this point, because we're just not there in the process yet. And so the reason that it was done is the city really struggles, it's my understanding in talking with Chris Coral and others, just from general maintenance and upkeep of the existing building because of the close proximity of the current substation, as well if they want to kind of unlock that larger vision for the Thomas Wolfe Auditorium. That substation and its location is currently a limiting factor just because it blocks the back of the facility from greater use. And so it started with a conversation, and then over time as the Civic Center master plan was developed, and then when we realized it was time to replace the substation, we wanted to initiate those conversations to find out if there was a broader interest across the city to relocate the station. I'm not sure that gives you everything you want, but that's a little bit of the history of how we got to where we are.
Okay, so if I understand you correctly, the driving rationale is to expand the shows that could be brought to Thomas Wolfe and the Civic Center by making the loading area more accommodating to bigger rigs. That's what it sounds like. That's the reason, as I understand, other than that it's feasible to move. That's the reason, if I have that correct. I'll take that as a yes. Silence is consent. Thank you.
I think you're pretty close there, Perrin, that since it has to be rebuilt anyway, would there be the opportunity, depending on what side you look at, to move it? So I think Rachel was next, I believe.
Yes, thanks. I just wanted to chime in about, there was a question about the city's project page. We will post any meetings and updates as we're made aware of them. The meeting last week, I found out about that meeting really late, so that's why that seemed to be an impromptu and informal meeting. So that's why that wasn't put on there. But once we get solidified details about the neighborhood meeting, and we'll put that on our project website. And I also wanted to share, because this was a question that came up last week too. The question was, will this follow, the typical, review process? And it definitely will, just because it originated in CED. Just in case that was a question that anyone had out there, it will still go through the regular processes.
All right, thank you. Ed? No? Oh, your hand was still up, sorry. All right, then Zoe, I believe.
So the designs have not been submitted yet, correct?
No, and I don't think they're even so far as designs yet.
So is there reason to think that there may not be a need to cut the trees for space?
Well, the downside is, so if it were just a space issue, you could potentially leave those trees. But, and I'm not an engineer, but what I see when I'm on that site is that any disturbance to that parking lot could very easily impact that slope. And they're going to need to do something to stabilize the slope. And any construction there, you're going to have the trees. And so that's, I think, what's going on is anything that happens in that parking lot space that's not what it is right now is going to require something to happen on that slope. What exactly, we don't know. But that's just what I see when I'm out there, if that makes sense. And y'all can correct me, been out there longer. But I believe Cecil was next.
Yeah, I was just going to observe that as I've been a builder for 50 years, and it would seem to me from a practical standpoint, it'd be a lot easier to build a whole new facility and then switch the wires than to try to rebuild within the facility that exists there, because it has to keep working the whole time. They can't turn it off.
Right. So as far as a plus to moving the substation is you can rebuild it. Another thing that came up in the meeting last week is obviously a new substation is a lot different than what's currently existing. So it looks different. It has different, components. So potentially could be, I don't know, less impactful in some way, but I don't, again, any construction on that site, I think is going to impact that slope. So I'm not sure who was next, Sharon?
Yes. As a contractor, you're going to need a retaining wall or the concrete wall from hell to retain that slope to build that. So it will absolutely impact that hillside no matter what. So.
Yeah. All right, Scott.
One thing I wanted to point out to the commission is that Mayor Mannheimer described the process of Duke's community engagement and feedback and design would and is going to run parallel to the process of exchanging the land. So instead of knowing 100% what the plan is for that property and then deciding to exchange the land, it sounds like they're going to run neck and neck. So the commission should be aware that there is potential for problems there in the event the land is exchanged and then Duke decides not to build on that location. And I'm not saying any more or less. It's just the potential exists for that to happen based on the city's, I think, unwillingness to go through the design review have complete plans before they adopt exchanging parcels.
All right, thank you. Karen.
Thank you. This is sort of like in a limbo state. It seems like this project is in limbo, and so we're just being introduced to it right now. And I'm not even sure that we're being asked for specific feedback on anything on this project at the moment. I haven't heard any questions posed to us yet. But nonetheless, I think, this is as good a moment as any to point out that if a proposal can be put together that's specific and brought to us for feedback, that would be really helpful for us to sort of get a lay of the land in terms of what the overall impact to urban canopy would be. So one specific item that I would be interested in seeing in any such plans would be not just what would do to the parking lot and the surrounding trees across the street, but what would the new urban canopy look like on the site where the station would then be removed? So can we produce a net benefit to urban canopy long run for the city of Asheville, which then could produce cooling benefits for the Civic Center, because trees adjacent to the Civic Center could reduce energy costs on site, et cetera, for air conditioning and what have you, and other spillover benefits to the community from an increase in urban trees and urban canopies. So, that's my unsolicited feedback. I think we would have an easier time of giving you specific feedback on a specific proposal that covers what's going to happen on both sides of the street.
Thanks, Karen. And I'm actually really glad you brought that up. That was something that was in my mind standing on the site last week was, okay, well, this definitely could be a problem and we'll have to deal with what could happen if it moves. But then there's all this potential of what could also happen on a plus side by moving the substation as well, and what could go back in to the other site to improve things there. So I think you're exactly right. This is just an introduction to get this group up to speed on this proposal, because again, the community does come to us and ask us about these kinds of projects. So hopefully we're now at least all up to speed on where it's at now, which we don't have any specific design. Another thing that I think is good about having this meeting so early is, now we have communication with Duke Energy, and I've already talked to Jason about our questions with, Duke being technically a member of the UFC, and we're going to keep talking about that collaboration and how we can continue to communicate. And Megan being here, she's new in her role, but having an outreach and engagement person that we can reach out to is great as well. And Scott being the conduit for the local residents and businesses. I just want to thank everybody for being here. And Rachel, thank you too, for getting this together so that we can be a part of the conversation. This is something that we actually haven't seen that much in this kind of project, where we have a voice and input this early on. So just to reiterate what Ed said early on, for anyone who is able to make decisions about this, obviously our preference is to prevent a loss of mature tree canopy and enhance anything that is lost with replanting and redesign as necessary. So I assume we can all agree that that's our basic stance, and we would like to see preservation wherever we can. So any other questions or comments at this point on this project? We'll keep it on the agenda so we can revisit.
Thank you very much.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for being here. Thank you so much. All right. Next on the agenda is the City Arborist report, but Mark isn't here. Did he get a chance to submit anything, Haley?
He did not have any updates for us, and he is on vacation, so he will not be here today.
All right. Well, hope he's enjoying his vacation. The Tree Canopy Protection Ordinance Fianlu report is present here. Not a whole lot of changes right now. I did submit our wish list to Nancy and Chris Collins so that hopefully as we get rolling, we can get updated metrics, some other data to be able to understand what's actually going on as the ordinance is rolled out, what's lost, what's planted, what's gained? How can we, manage that with data over time? Any questions on those pieces? All right. So for old business, we're about halfway through the year, right? So I wanted to have sort of a review of our working groups. So the 4 working groups that are currently in action are the policy working group, the budget request working group, Fianlu, and urban forest master plan. So I wanted to, before we get into the details of each group or kind of as we go along, throw it out there that if you are not a member of a working group and you want to be, we can talk about that. We can change up who's on these groups as needed. If we need a new working group or to eliminate something, we can also do that. So I wanted to sort of have a semi-annual check-in on our working groups. So again, if anyone has a desire to be on a group or to start one, feel free to jump in. We'll go ahead and start with the policy working group. And we have had a couple meetings, mostly on Chapter 19 revisions, am I right? The Tree Canopy Protection Ordinance, updates on that. A couple other items in there with the planting and specification standards. A little bit on steep slope, but we'll revisit that under new business as well. Anything else specifically with policy working group, Ed or Patrick, Sharon, that we should discuss today?
I have nothing new to report.
All right. Good. And then if everyone is satisfied with their, membership on that group, we'll keep that one rolling with the 4 of us, with me being on that group. All right, the budget request working group. So we finally have good news to report. All right, so City Council did approve the request for the funding for an urban forester, and great thanks to Kim Roney. Thank you so much. She did so much work behind the scenes to help us get that pushed forward. And here we are. So I don't know, Kim, if you had anything to speak to on that.
All I will say is that it took several years of deep advocacy across our community, including this group, members current and past, as well as advocates inside out, including Asheville Greenworks and others, to make the case. And I'm very glad that it has been made.
All right, well, thank you. So that means that the Urban Forest Master Plan was not yet approved. So there is still work to do as far as our budget request. That'll obviously start right on up for next year's request. But in the meantime, we are looking forward to the actual process of hiring the urban forester. Ben Woody has already reached out for input from us. If anyone has other, thoughts or wants to be involved with that, let me know. But we're going to help with that and get that piece going. And then, I don't imagine that as a commission, our work will be any less important just because there is a staff position as well. I think they can always be help. If I were the urban forester, I would love to have a group like this to support and work on the work that we do. So as far as the budget request working group, I know Cecil, I had stepped into that group. Was it that one or the other one that I had stepped in? And I was wondering if you wanted to come back in on that one.
I'd be happy to. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you stepped in because of some discussions with the city.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if that's cool, let's go ahead and put you back on there because I definitely don't need to be on every working group. That's not, I think the point of being chair is not that. So I would be happy to step away from that group, but then, obviously help y'all in any way. So that one is, I believe, Ed and Cecil, and was it Patrick and Dawn? I believe. Okay. Karen?
Thanks. I just want to make a discussion topic comment on this item, and I don't know if this is the best time for it, but before we move on from Urban Forest Master Plan, I just want to discuss this a little bit. So my perspective is that the urban forester really is a position that's in service of the Urban Forest Master Plan. And so it's like one of the support pillars of the urban forest master plan. I'm not sure, and I want to hear from everybody else, what is it that we feel that can be accomplished by retaining an urban forester without having an urban forest master plan? What can we do in the interim while we're pushing for that funding for the master plan? Because this is real money that will be spent on the urban forester, and we want to make sure that's put to good use and that we're advancing our objectives. So I just want to hear from folks. What do you think about that?
Thank you. I think actually this is the appropriate place to have that discussion. So thank you. We'll go ahead and with Ed.
Yeah, there's a document that we developed when we were advocating for the position that I will go ahead and post if I can in the chat board, because that paper really describes, I think, very well a lot of the critical job needs that this position will perform. So we've already gone through that thought process, and I'm sorry if not everybody had a chance to see it, but it describes. We used it to base our argument and help to convince the city that we needed this position. There are critical needs. So I think that answer is already there for you, Perrin. I'll see if I can post it in the chat room.
And we can also link it to the action minutes. But I think part of what Ed's getting at here is that there's more to the position than really just the plan. I get what you're saying, but I think instead of urban forest master plan, it seems to me that what Perrin is describing is the comprehensive urban forestry program, everything that the city is working on. And the plan is a piece of that, and it helps guide that work. But I believe there's a lot of things that the urban forester can be acting on while a specific plan is being implemented within the framework of the urban forestry program, if that makes sense, how those are slightly separate pieces.
Right, exactly. And so I want to create a space to discuss what are we going to do with the urban forester first. So we're going to have a year with no plan and an urban forester. So what do we do with him? Here's an idea: inventory the urban forest of the city of Asheville. That would be a logical first step, right? The city has not done that. I mean, we have the Davie Resource Group inventory, which could be updated, and it is due to be updated. So anyway, I'm asking for live discussion right now, not posting of written reports. Like, let's talk about our ideas and flesh this out a little bit.
Sure, I see where you're going. An inventory would be more than a one-person job, but that might be something obviously that the urban forester would want to have, in pieces they could put together and manage. But that's going to require a funding request. That I think that is actually probably one of the top priorities of the budget working group moving forward is a two-piece approach with the inventory and the urban forest master plan. We've been requesting those together with the master plan, including the inventory. And that's why the amount was so large, is because it did include that. But I definitely think that an urban forester would be anticipating and working toward that, because there's a lot of background work you can do for a plan and for an inventory to prepare. So, Sharon?
Yeah, I was going to talk to Perrin about the document that was Ed talked about with our critical needs. And also, if they don't come within the city and they come outside of the city, it's going to take them a long time to figure out the process of how the city functions even on the technical review end of it, where they will step in. And it's going to take a while for them to understand the development process, what they're looking at, the technical review committee, what that is needed, what the ordinances look like. I mean, there's going to be a big learning curve as somebody stepping in and trying to absorb how the city functions. I mean, that's what I see because I'm looking at it from my end of it, from the technical end of it, of course. And there's a lot of knowledge that they're going to have to learn on how to review the whole process of our development and field work, what that looks like, because we're in definite need of, even with Greenworks help in the field end of things, the physical end of things, as well as the other end of it. So there's a huge amount of work I see that they're just going to have to sort what I call the wheat through the chaff, kind of, even with Ed's fabulous critical needs document that we have all lined up, which is very concise. So,
yeah, thanks for posting that report, and I will check that out, Ed. To what extent is the position that's been funded responsibilities defined already? Or does that remain to be completed?
That's still being worked on. That's what Ben reached out to request some help with, because it's now, again, at very early stages to even start the hiring process. They haven't even, posted the position. So very early stages. It's definitely going to take some time. Ed?
Just a second. Yeah, I'm sorry. I had a hard time, ignore what I posted. I had a hard time posting it, but I just emailed it to Haley, and maybe she can bring it up. But it like Sharon was saying, it lists a lot of the critical needs that we have right now with respect to project and plan review, implementation of the Canopy ordinance, things like that. Here it is. List of essential functions. And, of course, we're in an advisory capacity to the city, but the city really ultimately creates the job description and supervises the employee and helps define their job themselves. So we don't want to get out too far ahead of the city, except that I know that they have this document as well, and we developed this in conversation with people like Ben Woody and Chris Collins and others. So hopefully it'll provide a roadmap for this new employee once he or she is hired.
Thanks, Ed. And we'll definitely make sure this is attached in the action minutes for today so everybody can see it. All right. Any other discussion about that? And Perrin, I do agree. Thank you for bringing it up. It is something that we can help with. But to Ed's point, it'll be a city staff position. We can advise, but not dictate. But it's worth talking about what might be some of the goals that would be in front of this person.
Makes sense. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. So budget request working group, I'll be leaving. Cecil will come back in. As far as I think, we should keep this group going with revised goals, obviously, for the upcoming year. And hopefully then somebody new, this urban forester, to help facilitate some of that work as well. All right, so next working group is the Fianlu working group. We haven't met. Thanks, Kim, no problem. So I do think this is a group we should keep in place right now. It's Ed and Zoe and myself. But somewhat on hold, we can keep working on it, but I do think this is something that the urban forester will obviously be working on, and might be something that then we just can assist and advise, our usual role. But I'm definitely hoping that the Fianlu issue, the whole, question marks that we have around that will be something that we can work with this person on and hopefully get some traction by having a city staff person in place. So I propose that for now we keep this group active, and we can have another couple meetings maybe before the urban forester is in place to maybe give them the update of where we're at so far and offer our help. All right. Next is the urban forest master plan working group. That was me and Ed and Zoe again. And again, I think kind of the same thing here. This is something that we'll keep requesting as a funding request, that the urban forester, it's definitely gonna be something that they will be working on, but we can do a lot. We've been working with Asheville Greenworks and kind of putting some of these pieces into place as much as we can to lay the groundwork so that when we do have funding, it can be a more seamless integration and bringing that online. So again, I think we can keep this group going. If anyone, we do have room, both of those groups, we have room for one more person if anybody was interested in being a part of either of those, and we can keep those going with the anticipation of working together with the urban forester. Any other questions or comments on any of those? Karen?
I'm being such a squeaky wheel today. The connected issue of the inventory, the update of the Davie Resource Group inventory came up in a recent meeting. And
Can I pause you real quick? Sorry, just real quick. An inventory would be an on-the-ground measurement tree by tree. The Davie research is a canopy study. They're just slightly different. So I just wanted to update your vocabulary. So canopy study and inventory would be more on the ground.
Right. So thank you. So the Davie Resource Group Canopy Study being updated was sort of on a 5-year interval, was brought up at a recent meeting of ours. And Ben, I think you gave us, you said something about this, and I just wanted to check back with you and see if discussions have advanced at all, if there are any updates on updating the and funding an update to the Davie Resource Group study.
Aaron, I don't have an update right now at this moment on that.
Okay.
But I would certainly don't mind connecting with staff and trying to see if there have been any discussions on next steps for that.
Okay. As I understand it, we are at the 5-year mark, so this would be about on time.
So yeah, we'll probably need to look at perhaps how that gets put in the budget as a request or whatever needs to be done to make that happen. So
okay, thanks.
Thanks, Karen. Dawn?
Yeah, with regard to the canopy study, the one that Davie Resource Group performed was completed in October 2019, and it was for a time period from 2008 to 2018. So the 5-year mark from the time the study period would be 2023, and then it probably wouldn't be able to be conducted with that data until 2024. So we're not quite there yet.
But we'd have to put it in the budget now to get it on.
Yeah, it would need to be in the budget. And it's about 25 to 30,000.
All right, Ed?
Yeah, Dawn is spot on with that. But then another variable is the availability of NAPE imagery, because they don't fly those images but once every 6 years or so. So it might even be 2025 before new images are available. Is why we use 2018 data for a 2019 study. So, the last thing I want to throw out there is that might be an appropriate use for Fianlu funds. Do those reoccurring, periodic. 5 years is pretty often. I would probably want to stretch them out 7 to 10 years, to be honest with you, to really get change detection. But that's just my own thoughts.
All right, thank you. Dawn?
Yeah, I just want to add to that. To me, it depends on what we're going to do with this data, with these data, because we have the data from this 10-year period ending in 2018, and what have we done with it now? So maybe once we have an urban forester in place, we can do more based on the report. And I don't see the usefulness in doing repeated studies if we're not going to actually use what comes out of them.
I have a question. Is that canopy work used in the compliance with the tree canopy protection ordinance, or is that different data that is sometimes used when they use canopy measurements? Go ahead, Ed. Thanks. Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. It's different data. It's done at a different scale. The canopy protection ordinance is ground scale, or we might use aerial photographs for shape files, but it's an entirely different scale, so it wouldn't be used for that. what we have used the data for is to motivate the city to adopt a canopy protection ordinance and hire an urban forester. So, the last study has done some utility, but Dawn's correct in that we have a lot more work to do with just the old information. We know where the heat islands are. We know where there's equity issues. We could really focus on tree planting projects and programs. But we don't have a plan in place. We don't have a plan because we don't have funding for a plan. We now have an urban forester. We could start planning some of the stuff outside of the scope of a comprehensive urban forest master plan. We could do pieces of it. So, yeah, I think we're moving forward a little bit with the information that we got from the study.
All right, thank you. And actually that your answer to my question then also makes me feel better that we don't necessarily have to update that specific data quite so often. It's more of a, like you said, change detection tool to see trends, and we'd maybe perhaps want a little more time. All right. But thank you, Perrin, for bringing it up because we need to plan to pay for it. So it's a good point. And I did like the suggestion of possibly using Fianlu funds because the idea would be those would be perpetually regenerated, well, hopefully not, people would preserve, but there will likely be money in that fund. And so we could use it for something like that. That'd be good. All right, any other points on the Urban Forest Master Plan or Fianlu or any of our other ongoing working groups? All right, thank you. So next is the boards and commissions realignment. The city has slightly renamed the proposal from restructuring to realignment. The current status of that, I know Sharon has been going to some of the meetings and me as well. The city took a step back. They listened to the feedback from concerned boards and commissions members and other city residents and just concerned people about the speed of this restructuring. And so they've actually stepped back and have worked on now collecting more information, specifically from boards and commissions members. There hopefully soon will be a survey coming out to collect, the ideas, the basic of what they probably should have had at the beginning. What is working? What's not working? What do we need to make things better? Where should there maybe not be changes? So they're working on collecting that information. There was a meeting at the end of June with breakout groups to talk about, what would a possible improvement look like? What are the actual needs and wants? What would we want advisory groups and commissions to actually do for the city? What would that look like if there were changes, or does what we have now match what we want it to be? I know Sharon, I believe, did you work on the survey group with that? Or
no, I was with Haley and annual reports.
Reports, good.
Yeah. And I want to just say that the common theme all the way around has been Urban Forestry Commission is a working commission that works. So that has been the common theme from everybody all the way around, that everybody knows that we're functional and we work very well at a high level. So, and that's been mentioned in many of the groups that I've been in and been involved in. So there we go, the pat on the head to all of us.
Well, and part of that, you hear from other groups that people don't attend meetings and they don't put in outside time. And so, kudos to everyone here who does attend, puts in time, does want to do this work. Otherwise, why be on the group? So thank you to everyone. That's the main reason we do function, is because people want to be here and want to do the work and then do it. So thank you. So if you are still interested in keeping up or working on the boards and commissions realignment, the link here takes you to the city's webpage. There are links within there to all of the pieces that they've been working on and dates for the next meetings. Right now, there are once a month meetings for the next couple months to work through this input process with the people that are already involved. And then I expect perhaps I don't know exactly what the plan will be after all of that is collected. But as of right now, there's no plan to change anything for this moment. So we'll see, but that's the update right now. And just like what we said all along, until we know we don't exist, we'll keep working. So we'll go with that. But feel free to link through there. And you can also get on the email list. They send out email updates if you're on their list, if you're interested in getting updates from the realignment. Anything else? Questions? All right. Next item, quorum and public discourse discussion. So Nancy pulled together the documents from the ethics policy and the social media policy, and we wanted to have this discussion. I'm glad everybody's here. Just briefly, it's not really a big deal, but I know that at times, and I have struggled with this myself, but at times we are asked or find it something we want to do to talk about things going on in the city that may overlap with work that the Urban Forestry Commission is doing. And the primary thing that we have to be very careful of is separating our personal opinions and beliefs and desires, our words out in the community from our work as the commission. And again, that can be hard to create that separation because we're so invested in this group and in these other projects and items that come up in the community. But I just wanted to have a discussion and make sure that everyone here is very clear and on the same page, that all it takes is to be very clear at the beginning of any written statement or public statement. If it is not specifically something that the Urban Forestry Commission has written up and voted on, then it would be your personal opinion as a citizen or resident, which you're absolutely welcome to have. So, Dawn, I don't know, did I miss anything there? All right, any questions or other discussion? All right, please refer to the documents on the ethics and social media policy and let myself or Nancy know if there are any questions. Go ahead, Dawn.
I just wanted to say, I noticed at one of the city council meetings where I was in attendance that folks were mindful of saying, what their affiliations were, but also that they were speaking on their own behalf. So I appreciate that. And I just wanted to remind folks that the Tree Protection Task Force that Greenworks organizes is part of Greenworks. It's not a part or affiliated with the Urban Forestry Commission. There are commission members who also attend those meetings. So there's some connectivity there, but the Tree Protection Task Force is not a city task force in any way.
Yes, thank you for that clarification. It's not a subcommittee or otherwise connected to the Urban Forestry Commission, although we appreciate the input from the Tree Protection Task Force, but we are not connected. Thank you. Cecil?
Every Wednesday morning, I broadcast a radio show from the building next door to Dawn's office at WPVM, which Kim helped found. Not WPVM, sorry, Asheville FM. Yeah, oh well, beep. And at the end of each show, I have to do a disclaimer, and I say, views and opinions expressed on the horse's mouth are obviously well considered and correct, but they do not necessarily reflect the opinions of Asheville FM.
Yeah, so that's all it takes. That's all it takes. And to Dawn's point, I wasn't present, but I did watch that city council meeting, and I really appreciated everyone being there and speaking, but just being clear that you're there for yourself and not as commission, technically as commission members. So, Dawn?
Yeah, sometimes it's hard because I know that even if I say I'm speaking on my own behalf, I am seen as synonymous with Greenworks. So when I speak in public, I have to be very careful because it's coming from Greenworks, and I feel the same way about the Urban Forestry Commission. So just choosing what I speak about and where I speak is important.
That's a good point. The public doesn't always separate. So thank you. All right. Anything else? Okay. Well, then we are on to new business. We already discussed the Duke Energy project. we put this under new business, although it's sort of a carryover from last month on county partnerships. And we've talked about this in the past as well. Last month, we talked about specifically school properties as potential tree planting or project areas. And that discussion sort of morphed into a broader discussion of these different partnerships that we might be able to facilitate and engage in to promote trees and tree canopy across a broader area than just the city. Obviously, our focus is certainly the city of Asheville. We are here because of the city of Asheville and to serve the city council in an advisory role. However, it is often asked of us to, what are we doing with Buncombe County? Where are we at with different pieces that go on outside of our specific purview? So I just wanted to put this on the agenda. I see, Dawn, your name's on here. And I think that that's because as Greenworks, that might be the place to have those partnerships more ingrained, because Greenworks already does that. But where can the UFC fit in as support for that? So, Dawn.
Yeah. So the county, Buncombe County, does not have an entity that oversees trees or urban forests at that level, at the county level. So it's really dependent on the municipalities. The city of Asheville has a quote unquote tree board, what Tree City USA refers to as a tree board. We have the Urban Forestry Commission. Weaverville and Black Mountain had, I don't know if they currently do have, I don't think Weaverville does. And Black Mountain, there's the Swannanoa Valley Tree Alliance, which covers more than Black Mountain, but I think Black Mountain also has a tree board. I don't know if it's active still. So I think, like, when we're looking county-wide, one of the areas we should start at is inviting in maybe other tree boards to attend meetings and just see what we're about and maybe how they can structure. Of course, it's not under our purview as the Urban Forestry Commission to go out and advocate with the county or other municipalities that they form a tree board. But I think they can perhaps learn from us and the successes that we've had and how we operate. And also Greenworks has it on its tree protection task force agenda to expand our advocacy throughout the county. So that's another way, like, if you're interested in that, rather than trying to go through the Urban Forestry Commission, come to the Tree Protection Task Force, and you can have an outlet for that enthusiasm. So yeah, I don't know if others have any input on what the Urban Forestry Commission's role is or could be with regard to county-wide practices. I'd love to hear that.
Any thoughts or comments? I agree with Dawn that we could be a resource for other groups looking to form a tree board, but unless they're, already trying to do that, I don't know exactly how we'd be a part of that. Ed?
Yeah, there's a statewide organization, the North Carolina Urban Forest Council. And one of the roles of that council is to advocate for urban forestry, urban forest programs in communities throughout the state. But it's hard to reach Western Carolina. It's a long way from Raleigh. As I've seen in other states and encouraged in other states, the state councils sort of spin off chapters that will allow the regionalization of programming, educational programs, or advocacy for ordinances, things like that. So it's something that I mentioned, at least to the Tree Protection Task Force last week, that we should start thinking about advocating in Buncombe County and maybe moving towards a Western Carolina Urban Tree Council, as a splinter group of the statewide organization. just so communities can get together and share what they know and share resources. So I'm certainly not looking for another thing to do, but you know, I think if we find the right people with the right amount of energy, we would probably have value.
Yeah, I just got a sinking feeling when you started.
I know. I'm being very careful.
I do participate in the North Carolina Urban Forest Council. They have community tree advocacy group network that formed this year, and so I attend those meetings monthly. But yeah, I think something like that could be good. I'm not raising my hand to take it on right now.
Yeah, I'm not either, but it's just something to keep in the back of our minds that, or even a single event just to convene other communities to have that conversation, you know, or we can talk to Leslie and Raleigh about holding a state conference in Asheville so we can bring these other communities in. So.
Thank you. Sharon?
I don't want anything else to do, but I sit on another board and commission, and one of the women is leaving. The county is doing a working group on open space, and they're going to rewrite their open space. So there's also talk of rewriting their UDO, and I think they're going to take a part of what we've done, have working groups that submit information to the county, and then I have no idea, but I know she is going to go work on the open space rewrite for the county. So they're opening up some kind, I'm calling them working groups because I don't know what they're calling them, but they are forming that at the county right at the moment.
All right, thank you.
FYI.
All right. So I don't think this is something we need to maintain on the agenda, but I did want, you know, for especially any community residents, you know, people watching or watching the recording to know that it is obviously something we care about. It's just not technically under the purview of the UFC to reach outside of the city and projects that are brought to us. But these are great ideas. I love the idea of having the Urban Forest Council be more involved out here if we can kind of help get them out here. But we'll keep talking about it. And as this group, if opportunities arise, we can bring them up. If there's any place that you see where we can make those connections or play an advisory role, that's something we can do. So, Karen.
Follow-up question for Sharon, just for information purposes. Were you talking about somebody in Buncombe County working on open space changes in Buncombe County, or which county was that?
Buncombe County.
Okay.
Yeah, they're forming an open space, I'm going to call it task force working group.
Okay. Do you know her name? Do you remember her name?
And I can chat with you about it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I can chat. I wanted to chat with you about it anyway, but
okay.
We'd be busy.
Yes. Thanks, Sharon.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right. Thank you. All right. Well, then next we have the add-on item, the Elk Mountain steep slope issue. So Sharon, if you want to give us a update on that.
Yeah. I got a email from a neighbor with concerns of several neighbors on a steep slope B, which is the steepest on Elk Mountain Ridge. And what makes Elk Mountain Ridge kind of peculiar is that it doesn't look like a steep slope such as Bowcatcher Mountain does. It's been leveled and graded, and there are houses that sit up on hills and down in hidey holes, but it is still a steep slope B due to its elevation and certain criteria. So it's not an obvious, for me anyway, steep slope when I went up there to take a look, because it's been leveled out with grading and housing, and it's been an established neighborhood for a long time. But what has happened in this particular area, and I sent an email to Ricky about it, is that when they said hundreds of trees were pulled out, and they wanted to know why, or actually were more trees going to be put back in, and how could they do this? The standard question we get. And so I pulled on Excel all that I could find, and I found a permit to pull out 12 trees that were diseased and invasive. And I did go by and check the site, and it is a nice single family home being built in a hole and almost a 1 to 2, meaning almost a very steep drive going down. And it does look like, and I'm going to guess that over 100 trees have been removed. And I could not find a grading plan for it or a planting plan. I found a grading plan for the driveway, but not a planting plan. So I sent Ricky one of my infamous emails to and said, hey, what's up? I couldn't find the grading permit. I knew they had one. They had, when I walked by, they had several no trespassing signs, and I did not want to trespass on the property and look down to see what was going on. So I tried to do it the proper and polite way and do it from the street. And it was hard to tell. So I sent to Monty on the grading, and he said they did have a grading permit, which I assume they did. And what brings me to, and I'm sure Ricky's going to, whether they sent somebody out, give me some information on it. But what I said at the beginning of when we started to form the tree canopy 719 is that a lot of planners don't know when someone fills out an application that that's on a steep slope. And I want big black letters, big red letters, steep slope A, steep slope B, on the application, so that when a new planner to the area or even an old tired planner to the area looks at the application, they can see that, well, it's a B, maybe they don't need this whole requirement when they're removing all these trees if it's an A, but if it's a B, we need a planting plan because it's required to the percentage of the slope, to all the things that are required in B. And I couldn't find that on this, the planner may have not known it was on a B. And then again, the planner may have known. And for some reason, Ricky's going to tell me later that they didn't need to do a plan for that particular development for the trees they removed, a planting plan for trees that are going to go back in. So I was just waiting for Ricky, whenever he had time to put it all together in his busy schedule, what the process was for that particular development. But my thing is I like to see, as Amy and I chatted on the email, a steep slope working group come together and tune up the steep slope to say, if we're going to fill out an application, let's somehow get on there that it is a steep slope, whether it's A or B, and these are the requirements for it, so they make sure to be adhered to. So that's my short version of it. And I'm glad you're here, Ricky. Thank you.
So yeah, I don't know if Ricky, if you have any information about that project specifically.
Sharon, we've got somebody going out. We had a lot of people out last week. But I will say that the approved grading plan, which is also the zoning approved plan, shows the limits of disturbance being the driveway and the house footprint itself. There was no other tree removal authorized by that approval. So hundreds of trees removed would be a violation of the zoning permit and the steep slope. And so we wouldn't allow anybody to remove extra trees and staff approve a landscaping plan. So in the past, we've had people come to this board to do an alternative landscaping plan, maybe because it was like a monocrop of white pines on the site. There has been the past of that. And we've had people go to the Board of Adjustment that need to grade above and beyond due to either a landslide or prior disturbance from, the 50s and 60s for driveways and roads that cross property. But that's, as you see, the two paths are some sort of commission or board. It's not a staff level. So we, as staff, cannot authorize that additional tree removal. So it sounds like to me, based on your observance, Sharon, that we have an issue on that property.
Okay. And other than, sorry, go ahead, Sharon, if you want.
Real quick, I'm sorry, this is an aside. The neighbors wanted to pull the plans, and you know how it's required to have those boxes on site that show what work is being done. They've got one way down below behind their no trespassing signs. So the neighbors told me they couldn't go look at the plans because my first was, did you look at the plans they have posted in their box that they're required to post to see if there is a planting plan showing that they're allowed to do this, before it came into me having to research everything. So a part of that also is allowing access to plans so the neighbors can see what's going on and open up that white box and pull it out and see if there's a plan or not. So, I mean, if that was adhered to, that would save a lot of people's problems if they could just look something up on what's going on. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and simplicity, so you can look through Excel, but you can use.
Can't hear you.
You can't hear me?
What'd you just say?
You can use the simplicity tool.
Oh, I know how to use
the
the tools. I'm talking about the neighbors can go open up the box and pull the plans out.
Yeah.
And say, oh, is there a planting plan here? Because that's my first thing. Did you check the box for the plans? Do they have their plans posted? You know, so I mean, that the more information you give, in my opinion, the more information you give the neighborhood, the happier everybody's going to be, because they're not trying to then contact us and go, well, why did they do that? You know, and that kind of thing. So I'm just saying, if we can get everybody to do what they're supposed to do, then the neighbors get all happy and everybody can work together, as opposed to becoming this adversarial thing of why did they do this? You know?
Yeah. I will speak to the inspections coordinator for the building side because zoning typically doesn't go out to residential sites unless there's issues. That's the building code, and the grading inspectors are the ones that should be looking for plans on site as far as the pre-construction, you know, pre-grading review and or the inspection process for the footers. So they should be having plans on site and access to that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, sorry, Amy.
Well, no, I was just, this is fine. I was just, you had made a good point, Sharon, or a question. And I just don't know if it's something that we need to have a real formal process for, but can the plans that are in steep slope have some sort of marking to make it very obvious and clear to everyone who looks at that plan that it's steep slope? So, you know, I don't know if that's something that we need to form a whole working group around, which we certainly can, but, you know, I don't know, Ricky, or I don't know if Ben is still with us. Is that something that we can, you know, advise the city that might be a good idea and see if that can go anywhere?
I can double check with the plan reviewers, because when I've approved plans in the past, I always make sure I stamp the plan that was going in the field with steep slope zone A, 30% disturbance, no additional vegetation removal is authorized. I'm looking at this one in particular, and it says, see the permit for conditions. And we know not everybody always goes back and read all the Magna Carta of conditions in the permit set. So I'll double check to make sure we're stamping conditions on the plan sets too.
That'd be good. I know on like level 2s and 3s, it'll have on a checklist steep slope. And but on the single family housing, it's not looked at as closely as level 2s and on up. You know.
Oh, we look at them closely. We're looking at them closely on my end. We're looking at them closely. I just need to make sure that the customer's looking closely.
Well, that's what I didn't mean the city. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, it's like they need, because a lot of people come in and buy a home and a steep slope. And I know when I bought here, I didn't know I was on steep slope A and couldn't take my dead pine trees out or blah, blah, blah. So it was a learning curve even for me in 2004. So, I mean, we've got to give a benefit of the doubt that the people that are moving here, that are new from here, these people are from out of the area, need to know if they don't know, because a lot of it's just really, I need to do that, really, you know. So It's just more information we give, the happier everybody is, and then we get to save some of our tree canopy if at all possible.
All right.
Thank you. Keep me
Yes,
posted because
Yeah, I
the
was gonna say,
neighbors
and-
are sending me emails. So thank you.
And if y'all could loop me in, then we can update this group next month as well, or at our next meeting. All right. Anything else on that one? Thanks, Sharon, for bringing that to our attention. All right. Next is in-person meetings. There is a phase back coming down from the city. So Haley, do you want to update us?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So the city clerk's office have reached out to us to let us know that we're going to be phasing back to in-person soon. The first test phase will happen in September, and they're looking to see which groups might be interested in being part of that. So I'm reaching out to you all now to kind of gauge your interest in getting back to in-person in September. If we don't choose September, I imagine it wouldn't be much long after that that we'd get back to in-person, probably October or November.
Any questions or discussion for Haley, Sharon?
I'm for in-person, FYI.
Okay.
Thank you,
Sharon.
I'm opposed. It seems to me that it's antithetical to an environmental viewpoint to drive to get together when we don't need to drive to get together. I don't get that. Also, with Omicron kicking up again, and they're expecting it may get worse during the summer, we'll see about that. But my main position is, why get into a car? I guess we could all bike like Amy used to do to the to SACE meetings, but I don't think we're going to do that. So.
That was the other Amy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry.
I'm afraid. I love to bike, but honestly, in Nashville, I'm a little afraid in most of our places to bike. So thank you for that. I have a feeling this is going to come down either way. Cecil, would you be able to attend if we're in person?
It would depend entirely on at this point anyway, the COVID thing. We're still getting 300 to 400 cases a week in Buncombe County, and you don't know who's got it. Two people I've been working for, fortunately I was working outdoors, but they just came down with it. And I mean, and people are still dying, you know?
Yes. All right, thank you.
So I would, I mean, yeah.
You would come, but I understand your concern, so thank you. Karen.
Yeah, the last time we met in person, everybody did a really great job of masking up, and everybody in the room was masked except for Vidila and his child were sitting there with no masks on throughout the entire meeting in a room with closed doors. And so to me, that's kind of a deal breaker, to have a tolerance for people to just like choose whether or not to wear their masks. And so if we had a rule where masking was mandatory for anyone who wanted to attend in person, that would certainly make me feel a lot more comfortable about my health being protected by everyone in the room.
I don't know that we can mandate that. That's something I'll have to ask the city clerk's office.
Yeah, I appreciate that, but I think that might come from above. It might be more of a personal choice rather than a mandate.
Right. So I just want you to know that that's a big deciding factor for me personally in whether or not to attend. So if there isn't an allowance for that rule, then that means I'm a no.
All right, thank you. I'll jump in and say I personally think, other than the health issues, I think our discourse is better served in person and our discussions are better. We've done a really good job. I commend this group for our ability to perform virtually. But I am in favor of in-person primarily for the ability to sit there with y'all and look at you and have those conversations. That's where I stand. But I appreciate the health concerns. But again, I have a feeling that, again, this is at the discretion of the city clerk's office.
So stop me if I'm wrong, but what I'm hearing is we might not be ready to get back to in-person, or not everybody is feeling comfortable with the in-person come September. Again, we won't have our choice on the matter when they pick the date for us to go back, but it should be shortly after September, if not not September.
Yeah, Haley, I would agree that this group is sounding like wait until we have no choice on it.
Okay. Thank you, Amy. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for your input on that one. Okay, the last item on the agenda is the August meeting. I'm going to be on vacation and will not be able to attend. And I believe Dawn is also on vacation and will not be able to attend. So I wanted to ask this group if there was opposition to canceling the August meeting. Our working groups are still welcome to meet as we go along, but to reconvene in September. The only thing we can consider is if there's an alternative compliance request, we could either see if they're able to postpone, the applicant is able to postpone till September, or we could possibly have a special meeting just for alternative compliance. But I don't know, I guess it's something we want to discuss or make a motion and vote on. But I just don't know if we'll be actually able to hold a meeting in August with at least 2 people being absent. So any discussion? Ed?
I am fine with taking a month off. So let's do that.
Okay. I guess just for the formality, go ahead, Sharon.
Well, that brings us to the alternative compliance issue. I mean, do we need a full board on alternative compliance, or will the city be okay with us not reviewing an alternative compliance? Is that an option?
Yeah, so I asked, and currently there's no applications on the table at this moment. And so we were going to wait and see if anything comes through. And then at that time, ask the applicant if they're able to delay, if it wouldn't cause a burden for them to delay till September. And if we need to vote on it, either, see if it's possible to have a quorum for a regular meeting time, or set up an alternative meeting if need be. So it's kind of up in the air, but at this moment, we don't have that on the table. We don't have anything.
I'm good with canceling it and waiting to see if we do have an alternative compliance. Sitting on TRC, I see everything in advance, and I don't see anything coming up so far. I've got to review 4 of them this week. And if I think one of them says on there they need to go to alternative compliance, I'll shoot you an email. But I haven't so far not seen anything coming through.
Okay, thank you. Haley?
So there's also level 1s out there that, might submit for alternative compliance. At this time, I'm not expecting anything, but I'll know by the deadline is next Monday at noon. So we'll be able to follow up next week with a definite on whether or not we've received any applications.
Good.
And I guess the alternative is if anyone's interested, I don't know the technical way this flows down, but if somebody wanted to step in and run the meeting and have discussions, if we had a quorum, we can have a meeting. I just don't know with the chair and vice chair absent exactly how that works. So I would just hate to schedule the meeting and then knowing that we wouldn't be able to hold it, if that makes sense. So, all right. So I don't know. I figure just for the formality, we might as well have a motion and vote on it. But go ahead, Dawn.
I was going to make a motion that we cancel our August 2022 meeting.
All right, second. Second. Okay, thank you, Perrin. All right, and a vote. So, Ed.
Aye.
Sharon.
Aye.
Zoe.
Aye.
Perrin.
Aye.
Patrick.
Aye.
Dawn.
Aye.
And I vote aye. All right, so we will plan to cancel the August meeting, and we'll be in touch if we have to do anything with alternative compliance requests. So other than that, we will see everybody in September for our regular meeting, virtually, I assume. So thank you so much.
I move to.
Oh, we got it.
Amy.
Thank you. We have to vote on adjourning. So we have a motion to adjourn from Cecil. Is there a second?
Second.
I think Perrin snuck in there with the second. All right. So Dawn.
Aye.
Ed.
Aye.
Sharon.
Aye.
Zoe.
Aye.
Perrin.
Aye.
Patrick.
Aye.
And I vote aye. So now we are adjourned.
You skipped me on both votes, but
Oh, because Cecil,
I would have voted aye.
I crossed you out because you were absent at the beginning. I'm so sorry. My apologies. Thank you for updating the record on your.
You don't love me. I know.
That's not it.
Good job,
Apologies.
Amy.
Thank you, everybody. Have a
Good
good
job,
day.
guys. Thank you.
Bye.
Great meeting.